Welcome. Welcome to this quiet space where the world outside can wait. Whatever brought you here tonight, whatever thoughts have been circling through your mind, you can let them rest now. This is your time, a time for stillness, a time for gentle stories and the soft rhythm of falling rain. As you settle into wherever you are right now, whether that is your bed with pillows arranged just the way you like them, or a comfortable chair where you have decided to let the evening carry you toward sleep, take a moment to notice how your body feels. Notice the weight of your limbs, the way gravity holds you, the surface beneath you, supporting you completely. Outside, somewhere in the distance of your imagination, rain has begun to fall. Perhaps you can hear it now. The soft patter against windows, the gentle drumming on rooftops, the whisper of water finding its way down through leaves and along stone pathways. This rain will be with us throughout our story tonight, a constant companion, a soothing presence in the background of everything we explore together. Let your breathing find its own natural rhythm. There is nothing you need to control, nothing you need to fix or figure out. Your only task right now is to listen, to let the words wash over you like rain on warm summer earth, to drift along the gentle current of a story that has been told for thousands of years. Tonight we travel back through time, far back, to an ancient village nestled along the coast of Greece, a place where olive trees grew on hillsides and the sea sparkled under endless Mediterranean skies, a place where people lived simply, close to the earth, close to each other, close to the rhythms of nature that governed their days. In this village there lived a man who loved the stars. He loved them so much that he forgot to love the world beneath his feet. And in forgetting this, he nearly missed all the beauty that life had waiting for him. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Stories, like sleep, should not be rushed. They unfold in their own time, at their own pace, revealing themselves slowly, like stars emerging one by one as twilight deepens into night. So let us begin. Let the rain continue its gentle song. Let your body sink deeper into comfort, and let your mind open to a world far away and long ago, where an astronomer is about to learn the most important lesson of his life. The village had no name that history remembers. It was simply home to those who lived there, a small collection of white stone houses climbing the hillside where the mountains met the sea. In the morning light, these houses gleamed like scattered pearls against the green and brown of the landscape. In the evening, they caught the last golden rays of sunset and held them, glowing warmly against the deepening blue of twilight. The rain falls gently here in our imagination. It patters softly on the terracotta roof tiles, runs in thin streams along the narrow cobblestone streets, and collects in small pools that reflect the clouded sky above. The villagers do not mind the rain. It is a blessing here, where the summer months can be long and dry. They continue their work, perhaps a little more slowly, perhaps with a little more time spent beneath the sheltering eaves of doorways, watching the waterfall. If you were to walk through this village on such a rainy day, you would notice many things. The smell of wet stone and damp earth, the sound of water dripping from olive branches and splashing into clay pots placed beneath the corners of rooftops to catch the precious rainfall, the occasional bleat of a goat seeking shelter, the distant sound of someone playing a simple melody on a wooden flute, the notes drifting out through an open window and mingling with the rhythm of the rain. The people here live close to the earth. They rise with the sun and rest when darkness falls. They grow vegetables in small gardens terraced into the hillside. They fish in the morning when the sea is calm. They gather olives in autumn and press them into golden oil that tastes of sunshine and grass and something indefinably ancient. Their lives are simple but full, woven together by shared meals, shared labor, shared stories, passed down through generations. Everyone knows everyone here. The baker knows which families prefer their bread, crusty and dark, which prefer it soft and pale. The fisherman knows whose children will come running to the harbor when his boat returns, hoping for a small fish to bring home to their mother. The old women sitting in doorways know every birth and death and marriage and heartbreak that has touched this village for the past 50 years. Nothing happens here in isolation. Every life touches every other life, like ripples spreading across the surface of a still pond. It is into this web of connection, this tapestry of shared existence, that our story weaves itself. For in one of those small white houses, set apart just slightly from the others at the edge of the village where the path begins to climb toward the mountain, there lived a man who had somehow stepped outside this web. A man who had become so fascinated by what lay above him that he had forgotten to look around. His name does not matter for our story. What matters is what he did and what he almost lost and what he finally found. But the villagers simply called him the Astronomer, and so that is what we shall call him too. He had not always been so devoted to the night sky. As a child, he had been like any other child in the village, running through the streets with his friends, swimming in the sea, helping his father mend fishing nets. He had been curious about everything then, the way children are. Why do crabs walk sideways? Where does the wind come from? What makes the olive trees turn silver when the breeze blows through their leaves? But one night, when he was perhaps 10 or 11 years old, his grandfather had taken him up the mountain path to a flat clearing that overlooked the village and the sea. It was a clear night, the kind of night when the stars seem impossibly bright and impossibly numerous, when the sky looks less like a dome and more like an infinite depth into which you might fall forever. His grandfather had pointed out the constellations. There is Orion, the great hunter. See his belt? Those 3 bright stars in a row? And there is Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, chasing her prey across the heavens. The Big Dipper pours its waters into the Little Dipper. The North Star guides sailors home when they have lost their way. Something awakened in the boy that night, a hunger he had not known existed. The stars, his grandfather told him, were not merely pretty lights. They were stories. They were guides. They told you when to plant and when to harvest. They helped you navigate across trackless seas. They connected you to every human being who had ever looked up and wondered. From that night on, the boy was changed. He began staying up later and later, watching the sky wheels slowly overhead. He noticed how different stars appeared at different times of year. He tracked the wandering paths of the planets against the fixed backdrop of distant suns. He filled scroll after scroll with careful observations, with drawings, with questions he did not yet know how to answer. The rain continues to fall outside. Listen to it for a moment. The soft, steady rhythm, the way it seems to erase all other sounds, creating a cocoon of gentle noise that wraps around you. Let this sound carry you deeper into the story, deeper into relaxation, deeper into the quiet place where sleep waits patiently for your arrival. As the boy grew into a man, his fascination with the stars only deepened. He studied the ancient texts that traders sometimes brought from distant cities. He corresponded with other astronomers in Athens and Alexandria, exchanging observations and theories. His reputation grew. People began to travel from neighboring villages to consult him about the best times for planting, for sailing, for celebrating the festivals of the gods. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. His passion became an obsession. His interest became an escape. The more he looked up at the infinite beauty of the night sky, the less he seemed to notice the finite but equally beautiful world at his feet. The astronomer's house was small and spare. A single room with a bed pushed against one wall, a desk beneath the window, and a chair. That was all. He needed nothing else, he told himself. What use were fine furnishings when his true home was the night sky? What use were comfortable chairs for guests when he had no time for visitors? His desk was covered with scrolls and instruments, a bronze astrolabe that had cost him 3 years of savings, star charts drawn on precious parchment, a water clock that helped him track the movements of celestial bodies with precision, quills worn down to nubs from endless writing, candle stubs, barely more than puddles of wax, testament to the long nights he spent recording his observations. He slept during the day when others worked. The shutters of his house remained closed against the afternoon sun while the village hummed with activity around him. He did not hear the children playing in the streets. He did not smell the bread baking in the communal ovens. He did not notice when his neighbors gathered in the square to share news and gossip and the small dramas of their daily lives. When night fell, he awoke. While others prepared for sleep, he prepared for his work. He ate quickly, mechanically, barely tasting whatever simple food he had remembered to acquire. Then he would leave his house and begin walking, always walking, up the mountain paths along the cliff tops, through fields silver with moonlight, always with his face turned upward toward the stars. The rain patters against the windows of his small house. In our story, it is one of those rare nights when clouds have rolled in from the sea, obscuring the stars he loves so much. On nights like this, he paces restlessly, unable to settle like a bird that has forgotten how to land. He tries to sleep but cannot. He tries to work on his calculations but finds his mind wandering. He stands at his window and watches the rain fall, feeling only frustration that the sky has been taken from him. He does not hear the music in the rain. He does not notice how it transforms the world outside his window, making the stones gleam, bringing a fresh green smell from the olive groves, filling the cisterns that will keep the village alive through the dry months ahead. To him, the rain is merely an obstacle, a barrier between himself and the heavens. Years passed this way, many years. The astronomer grew older, but he did not notice. His hair, once dark, turned silver like the starlight he loved. Lines appeared around his eyes from squinting at distant points of light. His back began to curve from long nights bent over his desk, but he paid no attention to these changes in himself. just as he paid no attention to the changes in the world around him. His parents passed away, and he mourned them briefly before returning to his work. His childhood friends married, had children, became grandparents. He barely knew their names anymore. The village changed around him, new houses built, old ones crumbling, new faces replacing the familiar ones of his youth. He noticed none of it. Take a deep breath now, wherever you are. Feel your chest rise and fall. Feel the air moving in and out, effortlessly, as it is done every moment of your life without you needing to think about it. This breath connects you to every creature that has ever lived on this earth. The astronomer breathed this same air under these same stars thousands of years ago. We are all made of the same stuff, all part of the same story, all connected in ways we cannot always see. The astronomer had forgotten this connection. In his pursuit of the infinite, he had lost sight of the intimate. In reaching for the stars, he had let go of the earth. But life, as it often does, was about to offer him another chance. Every night that the sky was clear, the astronomer walked. He had worn paths through the fields and along the mountainsides, paths that only he used, paths that led to his favorite viewing spots. He knew which locations offered the best view of the eastern horizon for watching stars rise. He knew which rocky outcroppings were high enough to escape the thin mists that sometimes gathered in the valleys. He knew every twist and turn of these paths, or so he believed. He walked with his face turned upward, always upward. His feet moved automatically along the familiar routes, while his eyes drank in the glory of the night sky. He watched the slow procession of constellations across the dome of heaven. He tracked the wandering planets on their mysterious journeys. He counted shooting stars and wondered where they came from, where they went. The world beneath his feet existed only as an obstacle to navigate, rocks to step over, routes to avoid, streams to cross. He moved through this world without really seeing it, without appreciating the soft give of earth beneath his sandals, without noticing the night-blooming flowers that released their perfume into the darkness, without hearing the owls that called from the olive groves or the small creatures that rustled in the undergrowth. On moonlit nights, the landscape was transformed into something magical. The sea became a sheet of hammered silver. The white houses of the village glowed like earthbound stars. The olive trees cast long shadows that shifted and swayed in the breeze. But the astronomer saw none of this beauty. His eyes were fixed on the sky, searching always for something more, something higher, something farther away. The rain has softened now. It falls more gently, a fine mist that seems to hang in the air rather than fall through it. This is the kind of rain that farmers love, the kind that soaks slowly into the soil rather than running off in streams. This is the kind of rain that gives life. Let its soft presence settle over you now. Let it wash away any tension that remains in your body. Let it cleanse your mind of any worries that have followed you into this quiet time. One particular night, the astronomer set out on one of his familiar walks. The sky was exceptionally clear, the stars exceptionally bright. A slight wind had blown away the haze that sometimes gathered over the sea, and the seeing, as astronomers say, was perfect. He could distinguish individual stars in clusters that usually appeared as single points of light. He could see the subtle color variations that different stars displayed, some bluish white, some yellow, some with a faint reddish tinge. He walked and walked, wandering farther than he usually did, following a path he had not taken in many months. His eyes never left the sky. He was tracing the patterns of the constellations, noting how they had shifted since his last observation, calculating in his mind the slow drift of the heavens. He came to a place where a large log had fallen across the path. Perhaps it had fallen recently during the last storm. Perhaps it had been there for years and he had simply forgotten about it. In any case, he did not see it. He did not look down. His eyes were fixed on the stars above. His foot caught on the log and he stumbled. For a moment he hung, suspended in the air, his arms pinwheeling, his robes billowing around him. Then he fell, landing hard on the rocky ground. The breath knocked from his body. The stars spinning above him now, not from their celestial journey, but from the impact of his head against the earth. The astronomer lay on his back, staring up at the sky that had so captivated him. For a long moment, he did not move. He was not seriously hurt, only startled and bruised and thoroughly embarrassed. He lay there, catching his breath, feeling the cool earth beneath him, feeling the small stones pressing into his back, feeling his heart pounding from the surprise of the fall. Slowly, carefully, he sat up. He moved his arms, his legs, his neck. Nothing was broken, nothing was sprained. He would have some impressive bruises tomorrow, nothing more. He had been lucky. He had been very lucky. The path here ran close to a steep drop. If he had fallen a few steps later, or fallen in a different direction, things might have been much worse. A voice came from nearby. It was his neighbor, a man he had known since childhood, but had barely spoken to in years. The neighbor had heard the commotion and come out to investigate, carrying a small oil lamp that cast a warm circle of light in the darkness. "My friend," the neighbor said, "are you hurt? What happened? Here, let me help you up." The astronomer took the offered hand and allowed himself to be pulled to his feet. He brushed the dirt and leaves from his robes, wincing slightly as his bruises made themselves known. He felt foolish. He felt exposed. For so long he had kept himself apart from these people, wrapped in his solitary pursuit of knowledge. Now here he was, sprawled on the ground like a child who had not yet learned to walk. "I was watching the stars," he said, as if this explained everything, as if this excused his carelessness. The neighbor smiled gently. There was no mockery in his expression, only kindness and a hint of concern. He held up his lamp so he could see the astronomer's face more clearly, checking for any sign of serious injury. The neighbor spoke then, words that would change the astronomer's life forever, though neither of them knew it at the time. He spoke simply, as people in the village always spoke, without pretension or philosophical flourish. "My friend," he said, "why do you spend so much time looking at the stars when you fail to see what is right in front of you?" The astronomer opened his mouth to respond, to defend himself, to explain the importance of his work, but the words would not come. He stood there in the circle of lamplight, his neighbor's question echoing in his mind, and for the first time in many years, he had no answer. The rain begins again, soft and steady. Listen to it. Let it fill the silence between thoughts. Let it wash this moment clean, preparing the way for what comes next. The astronomer stands at a crossroads, though he does not yet know it. His old life, his life of solitary stargazing, stretches behind him. A new life, a life he has not yet imagined, waits somewhere ahead. All that separates them is a single choice, a willingness to open his eyes to what has been there all along. That night, for the first time since he was a child, the astronomer went to sleep when the rest of the village slept. He lay in his narrow bed and watched the rectangle of night sky visible through his window. The stars he loved so much still shone there, still beautiful, still mysterious. But now they seemed farther away somehow, or perhaps he seemed farther away from them. Something had shifted. Something had changed. He thought about his neighbor's question as he drifted towards sleep. Why do you spend so much time looking at the stars when you fail to see what is right in front of you? It was such a simple question. A child might have asked it, and yet he had no answer. What was right in front of him? He had never really looked. Sleep came eventually, and with it, dreams. He dreamed of stars, as he always did. But in this dream, the stars began to fall, slowly, gently, drifting down like snow. And as they landed on the earth, they transformed. They became flowers. They became faces of people he had known and forgotten. They became moments from his past, moments he had overlooked in his hurry to reach the next night, the next observation, the next discovery. He woke with the dawn. This alone was strange. He could not remember the last time he had seen the sun rise. Usually he slept through these early hours, exhausted from his nighttime wanderings. But today he was awake, and the light coming through his window was pink and gold, and somehow new, as if he had never seen morning light before. He lay still for a moment, listening. The village was coming to life around him. He could hear footsteps in the street outside, the soft voices of neighbors greeting each other, the crow of a rooster somewhere on the hillside. He could smell bread baking, coffee brewing, the faint salt smell of the morning sea breeze. These sounds, these smells, had been here every morning for his entire life. He had simply never been awake to notice them. The rain in our story falls gently this morning too. It is the kind of soft rain that the village loves, the kind that makes everything clean and fresh. The stone streets gleam, the flowers in window boxes lift their faces to receive the droplets. The air smells of wet earth and growing things. It is a good morning, a morning full of possibility. The astronomer rose from his bed. He moved slowly, his body still sore from last night's fall. He dressed in his simplest clothes, not the fine robes he wore for his astronomical work. Just a plain tunic and sandals. He did not know what this day would bring, but he knew somehow that it would be different from all the days that had come before. He opened his door and stepped outside. The morning was cool and damp, the sun not yet high enough to burn away the mist that clung to the hillsides. He stood in his doorway for a long moment, simply looking. The street stretched before him, the same street he had lived on for decades. But now he saw it differently. Now he saw the way the light fell on the white stone walls. Now he noticed the small garden his nearest neighbor had planted by her door, herbs and flowers growing together in cheerful confusion. A voice called to him from across the way. It was the same neighbor who had helped him up last night, now standing in his own doorway with a cup in his hand. "Good morning," the neighbor called out. His face showed surprise at seeing the astronomer awake at this hour, but also pleasure. "It is good to see you up and about. How are you feeling? No lasting damage from your adventure last night, I hope?" The astronomer found himself smiling. It felt strange on his face, this smile. How long had it been since he had smiled at another person? How long since he had engaged in the simple pleasure of morning conversation? "I am well," he said, "bruised but well. And I have been thinking about what you said." The neighbor nodded, his eyes warm. "Come," he said. "My wife is making breakfast. There is plenty for all of us. Come and eat with us. Tell me what you have been thinking." The neighbor's house was small but warm, filled with the evidence of a life well lived. A worn wooden table took up most of the main room, surrounded by chairs of different sizes and styles, collected over years as the family had grown. On the walls hung simple decorations, dried flowers, a woven tapestry showing a scene of ships and sea, a child's drawing carefully preserved. The smell of baking bread filled the air. The astronomer stepped through the doorway and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Welcome. Belonging. These people, who he had ignored for so many years, were opening their home to him without hesitation, without grudge, as if he had always been part of their lives. The neighbor's wife looked up from her work at the hearth. She was older than he remembered, of course. Her hair silver now, her face lined with the marks of years spent laughing and crying and living. But her smile was exactly as he remembered it from childhood, warm and genuine and instantly comforting. "Sit, sit," she said, gesturing to the table. "The bread is almost ready. There is cheese, there is honey. Sit and eat and tell us about your stars." The astronomer sat. The chair creaked beneath him, a friendly sound, a homey sound. He watched as the wife brought food to the table, fresh bread still steaming, its crust golden brown and crackling, a wheel of soft white cheese, a jar of dark honey that caught the morning light, figs that had been dried in the summer sun, a pot of strong coffee. Take a moment now to imagine this meal. Imagine the smell of the fresh bread, warm and yeasty and impossibly good. Imagine breaking off a piece and watching the steam rise from its soft interior. Imagine spreading cheese on that warm bread, drizzling honey over everything, taking a bite that combines all these flavors into something perfect. Let your imagination fill with these sensations as the rain continues to fall softly outside. The astronomer ate slowly. For years, he had barely tasted his food, eating only to fuel his body for another night of work. But now he let himself experience each bite. The bread was extraordinary, he realized, crusty on the outside, soft and almost sweet on the inside. The cheese was mild and creamy. The honey tasted of wild flowers and sunshine. Had food always been this good? Had he simply never noticed? They talked as they ate. The neighbor told stories about what had happened in the village over the years. Marriages and births, storms and harvests. The time a pod of dolphins had appeared in the harbor and stayed for a whole week, playing in the waves. The year the olive trees had produced so much fruit that everyone had more oil than they knew what to do with. The astronomer listened. He had missed so much. An entire world of events had unfolded while he had been focused on the distant heavens. He felt a pang of regret, sharp and sudden. All these stories, all these moments, all these connections he might have been part of. But the neighbor's wife seemed to read his thoughts. "Do not be sad," she said gently. "You are here now. That is what matters. The past is gone, but the present is full of possibility." When the meal was finished, the neighbor pushed back his chair and stood. "Come," he said to the astronomer. "Let me show you something. Let me show you what you have been missing all these years." They walked out into the morning together, the astronomer and his neighbor. The rain had softened to barely a mist, the kind that hangs in the air and kisses your skin as you move through it. The streets were quiet but not empty. Here and there, villagers went about their morning business, and each one smiled and called out a greeting as the two men passed. The neighbor led him down familiar streets that somehow looked entirely new. "Feel the stones beneath your feet," the neighbor said. "Feel how smooth they are, worn by generations of footsteps. Feel how the earth gives way in some places and holds firm in others. This ground has held our people for thousands of years." The astronomer looked down. He had walked these streets countless times, but he had never really looked at them. Now he saw the patterns in the stones, the way they had been laid by hand, each one placed deliberately, with care. He saw the tiny plants growing in the cracks, persistent green life finding a way even here in the hardest places. He saw the subtle variations in color, the way some stones had been worn smooth, while others still showed the marks of the chisel that had shaped them. They walked past the bakery, and the smell of bread wrapped around them like an embrace. The baker was just pulling loaves from his oven, and he called out to them, offering a warm roll to each. The astronomer bit into his roll and tasted heaven, butter and yeast, and something indefinably good, the taste of simple things made with love and skill and attention. "How long has he been baking bread here?" the astronomer asked, gesturing to the baker, who was now serving another customer. "His whole life," the neighbor replied, "as his father did before him and his father before that. The recipe is the same, the oven is the same, rebuilt and repaired over the years, but never replaced. Some things are worth preserving exactly as they are." They continued on past houses where the astronomer had once known everyone, past gardens he had once helped tend, past the square where he had once played as a child. At each place, the neighbor had a story. Here is where old Marcus fell into the fountain when he had too much wine at the harvest festival. Here is where Maria and Demetrios were married under the old olive tree. Here is where the children gather every evening to play their games. The astronomer listened and watched and felt something stirring in his chest. This was what he had missed. Not just events, not just stories, but connection. The sense of being woven into something larger than himself. He had thought the stars gave him that feeling of connection to something vast and eternal. But standing here in this small village, listening to these small stories, he realized the connection was right here too, close and warm and waiting to embrace him. Let the rain continue its gentle rhythm as you settle deeper into relaxation. Let your breath slow and deepen. Let your body sink into whatever surface supports it. The astronomer is beginning to understand something important now, something that perhaps you already know. The beauty we seek in distant places is often right beside us, waiting for us to open our eyes and see. They came to a small stand where a woman was selling fruit. Her table was laden with the bounty of the season: figs and grapes and pomegranates and oranges. The colors were astonishing. Deep purples and rich reds and sunny oranges, all tumbled together, glistening with the fine rain that still fell. The fruit seller looked up and her face broke into a wide smile. "The astronomer," she exclaimed. "I have not seen you in the daylight in years and years. Come, come, you must try my oranges. They are the best of the season." She selected an orange from her pile and began to peel it with practiced hands. The astronomer watched, fascinated, as the bright skin fell away in a single long spiral. The fruit beneath was perfect, each segment swollen with juice, the fragrance rising up to fill the air around them. She broke the orange into sections and offered them to the astronomer. He took one and put it in his mouth. The burst of flavor was overwhelming, sweet and tart and bright, the taste of sunshine captured in fruit. Juice ran down his chin, and he did not care. He laughed, surprising himself, and took another section. "Yes," the fruit seller said, nodding with satisfaction. "The stars are beautiful, I am sure, but you cannot eat the stars. You cannot taste them on your tongue. You cannot feel their juice running down your chin. These are the pleasures of earth, and they are good pleasures, no?" The astronomer nodded. He could not speak. His mouth was too full of orange, his heart too full of something he could not name. Joy, perhaps. Gratitude. The simple, overwhelming pleasure of being alive and present and connected to this moment, this place, these people. The fruit seller told them that her niece had the most beautiful garden in the village, and that if the astronomer truly wanted to see what he had been missing, that was the place to go. She closed up her little stand without hesitation, declaring that she would show them the way herself. And so the small party grew. The astronomer and his neighbor, and now the fruit seller, walking together through the rain-softened streets. And as they went, others joined them. A fisherman returning from the morning catch, a young mother with a baby on her hip, an old man with a cane who moved slowly but smiled constantly. The village was curious. The astronomer, awake in the morning, walking with others, eating fruit and laughing. This was something new. This was something worth seeing. The niece's garden was tucked behind a small house at the edge of the village, hidden from the street by a high wall covered in climbing roses. The rain had made the roses heavy, their heads bowed with moisture, their petals scattered on the wet ground, like fragments of some rosy dream. The niece welcomed them at the gate, her eyes bright with surprise and pleasure at the unexpected crowd. She was young, perhaps 30, with earth under her fingernails and a streak of dirt on her cheek. She wore an apron over a simple dress and looked as if she had been working since dawn. Come in," she said, stepping aside to let them pass. "The garden is at its best after rain. Everything is so alive." The astronomer stepped through the gate and stopped, stunned. He had seen many beautiful things in his life. The great spiral of the Milky Way, stretching across a moonless sky, the slow dance of planets through the constellations, the brilliant flash of a meteor burning up in the atmosphere. But he had never seen anything quite like this garden. It was not large, but every inch of it was alive with color and form and texture. Flowers of every kind grew in joyful profusion. Red roses climbed the walls. Purple irises stood tall beside a small pond. Orange lilies burst like flames from carefully tended beds. White orchids floated in clay pots, delicate as paper, intricate as anything he had ever seen through his astronomical instruments. Let yourself imagine this garden now. Let its colors fill your mind. The deep greens of leaves, still wet with rain. The bright spots of color where flowers bloom. The soft gray of stone paths winding between the beds. The gentle movement of water in the small pond, its surface dimpled by raindrops. Let this peaceful place become real in your imagination as you drift deeper into relaxation. The niece led them along the winding paths, pointing out her favorite plants, telling stories about where each one came from and how she had learned to care for it. This rose was a cutting from her grandmother's garden. These irises were a gift from a traveling merchant who had stopped in the village years ago. These lilies had grown from bulbs she had found growing wild on the mountainside and carefully transplanted. The astronomer bent to look more closely at the flowers. He noticed for the first time the incredible complexity of their structure, the way petals overlapped in precise patterns, the geometric perfection of seed heads, the intricate architecture of stamens and pistils. There was mathematics here, he realized. There was order and beauty no less profound than what he found in the stars. He reached out and touched a rose petal, felt its softness against his fingertip, a texture like nothing else in the world. A drop of rainwater fell from the petal onto his hand, cool and clean. He stood there for a long moment, feeling the connection between himself and this small, living thing, this flower that had grown from a seed, that had pushed through the earth toward the sun, that would bloom and fade and return to the soil from which it came. The stars are eternal, he thought, but flowers are not, and perhaps that made them even more precious. Perhaps beauty that fades is more valuable than beauty that lasts forever, because it asks us to pay attention now in this moment while we still can. From the garden, the growing group made their way to the temple of Apollo. The rain had finally stopped, though the sky remained overcast, soft gray clouds that seemed to hold the world in a gentle embrace. The wet stones of the streets sparkled in the diffused light. The temple stood at the highest point in the village, its marble columns rising toward the sky. The astronomer had been here many times, but always at night, always to visit the nearby temple of Artemis with its open roof that was perfect for viewing the stars. He had never paid attention to this temple dedicated to her brother, the god of light and truth and healing. Now he climbed the wide steps and passed between the columns and found himself in a space of quiet beauty. The marble floor was cool beneath his sandals, smooth and slightly slick from the rain that had blown in through the open sides. Carved statues lined the walls, gods and heroes frozen in moments of action or contemplation. The ceiling above was painted with scenes of Apollo driving his chariot across the sky, bringing light to the world. The astronomer stood in the center of the temple and looked around. He had always been in motion, always walking, always searching. But now he stood still. He felt the solid floor beneath him, grounding him to the earth. He felt the gentle breeze that wound through the columns, cool against his skin. He felt the presence of the people who had gathered around him, their quiet breathing, their patient waiting. Be still now, wherever you are. Feel your own body grounded and supported. Feel the air around you cool or warm, moving or still. Feel the presence of this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. The astronomer is learning that not all journeys require movement. Some of the most important journeys are journeys into stillness, into presence, into simply being where you are. He began to walk slowly around the temple, examining the carvings on the walls, the statues in their niches. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Whoever had made these things had devoted years of their life to learning the skills needed to transform cold stone into something that seemed almost alive. There was knowledge here, he realized. Knowledge as deep and complex as anything he had discovered in the stars. Knowledge of form and proportion, of light and shadow, of how to capture human expression in unyielding marble. The villagers watched him with gentle smiles. They were not surprised by his wonder. They had grown up with these carvings, had played among these columns as children, had sought shelter and solace in this temple through all the seasons of their lives. But seeing it through the astronomer's newly opened eyes made them appreciate it anew, as if they too were seeing it for the first time. The sun had risen higher behind the clouds, and the morning had slipped toward midday. The villagers began to gather their food, spreading blankets in the sheltered corner of the village square, where an ancient olive tree offered shade and protection. Each family had brought something to share: bread and cheese and olives, roasted vegetables still warm from morning fires, boiled eggs with herbs, dried fish and fresh fish, wine and water and juice pressed from grapes. The astronomer sat among them, cross-legged on a blanket, accepting every dish that was passed to him. He tasted everything: soft cheese that crumbled on his tongue, olives brined in herbs, their flavor complex and ancient, bread dipped in golden olive oil. Each bite was a revelation, a small miracle of flavor and texture that he had somehow never noticed before. Imagine sitting here with them now, the warmth of the blanket beneath you, the smell of good food all around, the sound of voices rising and falling in easy conversation, the occasional laugh, the comfortable silences that come only when people have known each other for a long time. Let this sense of belonging wrap around you like a warm cloak. The villagers talked and the astronomer listened. They told stories about their lives, their hopes, their worries. The farmer worried about the weather, about whether the spring rains would come at the right time. The fisherman told of a great school of fish he had seen that morning, silver flashes in the dark water. The young mother talked about her baby's first tooth, her voice full of wonder at this small miracle of growing. These were small stories, ordinary stories. Nothing that would ever be recorded in the great texts or remembered by historians. But listening to them, the astronomer felt something shift in his understanding. These small stories were not less important than the grand movements of the stars. In their own way, they were more important. They were the stuff of life itself, the daily bread that fed the soul. When the meal was finished, sweet honey cakes were passed around, and someone produced a flask of a strong, clear spirit that burned, pleasantly going down, and spread warmth through the chest. The astronomer had never been much for drinking, but he accepted a small cup and sipped it slowly, enjoying the way it made everything seem slightly soft around the edges. The afternoon stretched out before them, lazy and unhurried. Some of the villagers rose and returned to their work. Others stretched out on the blankets for a nap, their faces peaceful in repose. The astronomer considered doing the same, but the neighbor caught his eye and gestured for him to follow. "There is one more thing I want to show you," the neighbor said. "One more thing before the evening comes." The afternoon had turned golden, the clouds breaking apart to let long rays of sunlight stream down onto the hillsides. The rain had stopped hours ago, and the earth was beginning to dry, releasing that particular smell of wet soil, warming in the sun, rich and alive, and somehow hopeful. The neighbor led the astronomer up a winding path that climbed the mountain behind the village. It was the same path the astronomer had walked countless times on his nighttime wanderings, but it looked entirely different in the daylight. Flowers he had never noticed bloomed beside the path, small white and yellow blossoms nodding in the gentle breeze. Butterflies danced from bloom to bloom, their wings bright against the green of the grass. They climbed slowly, taking their time, stopping often to catch their breath and admire the view. With each step upward, the village spread out further below them, the white houses getting smaller, the web of streets becoming visible, the whole pattern of human settlement revealed against the larger pattern of land and sea. Behind them, others from the village followed. Not the whole crowd from before, but a good number. They carried baskets and blankets, food and wine, and they chatted easily as they climbed, their voices carrying on the afternoon air. This was not an expedition, the astronomer realized. This was simply what villagers did. They gathered, they shared, they walked together through the landscape. That was their home. Let your breath deepen now. Imagine climbing this gentle slope, your legs warm from the effort, your lungs filling with clean mountain air. The sun is warm on your face, the breeze is cool on your skin. All around you the world is green and gold and blue, alive with the quiet beauty of a summer afternoon after rain. They reached a plateau, about halfway up the mountain, a flat area of soft grass overlooking the village and the sea beyond. This was a place the villagers knew well, a place for picnics and gatherings, for watching sunsets and telling stories. The astronomer knew it too. He had passed through here many times on his way to higher viewing points, but he had never stopped. He had always been in a hurry to reach the next observation site. Now he stopped. Now he sat down on the soft grass and let himself simply be here, in this moment, in this place. The village spread out below him, beautiful in the golden light. The sea stretched to the horizon, its surface calm, reflecting the colors of the sky. The mountains rose behind him, green and gray, and touched with the first hints of the pink that would come with sunset. The villagers unpacked their baskets and spread their blankets. Food appeared once again, simple things, the kind of food that tastes best outdoors with good company. Cheese and bread and fruit. Wine poured into cups and passed from hand to hand. Laughter and conversation filling the air. The sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, and the astronomer watched. He had seen the sun set thousands of times, but always he had been waiting for it to finish, waiting for the darkness that would reveal his beloved stars. Now, for the first time, he let himself simply watch the sunset itself, without impatience, without agenda, without wishing it would hurry up and end. The colors were extraordinary, First gold, deep and rich, spreading across the sky like honey. Then orange, warm and glowing, touching the undersides of the clouds. Then pink, soft and delicate, the color of roses, the color of the inside of shells. Then purple, deep and mysterious, a bridge between day and night. And finally the deep blue of twilight, not yet dark, but no longer light, a threshold between two worlds. Watch these colors in your mind's eye now. Let them wash over you like waves of light, gold and orange and pink and purple and blue, each one more beautiful than the last, each one giving way to the next with perfect grace. This is how the day ends. This is how darkness comes. Not suddenly, not harshly, but gently, gradually, with a procession of beauty that offers comfort and peace. The villagers grew quiet as the light faded. Even the children stopped their play and came to sit with the adults, sensing that something special was happening. Everyone watched the sky, this thing they had seen every day of their lives, and found it beautiful still, found it worth watching, found it worthy of their attention and their awe. The astronomer felt tears pricking at his eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of something larger, something that encompassed joy and grief and wonder all at once. All these years, all these sunsets he had missed. But he was not sorry now. He could not be sorry, because he was here, in this moment, seeing this particular sunset with these particular people, and this moment was complete in itself. It lacked nothing. It needed nothing. It was perfect, exactly as it was. The last light faded, and the first stars began to appear. The astronomer looked up at them, his old friends, the companions of his nighttime wanderings. But now he saw them differently. Now he saw them not as an escape from the world below, but as a continuation of it. The same beauty that filled the sunset, the same beauty that filled the garden and the temple and the faces of his neighbors. That beauty was up there too, burning bright in the infinite darkness. It was all connected. It was all one thing. The villagers began to yawn and stretch, preparing to make the journey back down to the village. It had been a long day, a good day, but now sleep called to them. They gathered their things and folded their blankets, moving slowly in the darkness that was not quite complete, still touched by the faint glow on the western horizon. But the astronomer asked them to wait, just for a little while, just long enough for the sky to fully darken, for the stars to emerge in their full glory. He wanted to share something with them. After all they had shown him today, all they had given him, he wanted to give something back. He wanted to show them his stars. The villagers hesitated, looking at each other, but then they smiled and unfolded their blankets again and lay back on the soft grass. If the astronomer wanted to show them something, they would stay and watch. That was what neighbors did. That was what community meant. The stars emerged slowly, one by one at first, then in clusters, then in vast, sweeping multitudes. The astronomer lay on his back and watched them appear, familiar friends he knew so well. There was Orion rising in the east. There was the Great Bear circling the pole star. There were the Pleiades, that delicate cluster of sisters. Lie back now wherever you are. Let your eyes close or remain softly open, whatever feels right. Imagine the sky above you, vast and dark and filled with stars. Imagine the earth beneath you, solid and supporting, holding you safe. You are suspended between these two infinities, the infinite above and the infinite below, and you are exactly where you need to be. The astronomer began to speak, pointing out the constellations, telling their stories. There is Orion, he said, the great hunter. See his belt, those 3 bright stars in a row. The ancient Greeks said he was placed in the sky by Zeus himself in honor of his skill and bravery. And there, following him across the heavens, is his faithful dog, the star we call Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky. The villagers listened and looked and saw what he showed them. For most of them, the stars had always been simply there, beautiful but undifferentiated, a backdrop to their earthly lives. Now, through the astronomer's words, the stars became stories. They became characters in an ancient drama that played out every night overhead. The astronomer spoke of how sailors used the stars to navigate, how farmers used them to know when to plant and when to harvest, how lovers in ancient times would make wishes on shooting stars. He spoke of how the light they were seeing had traveled for years, sometimes hundreds or thousands of years, to reach their eyes. They were looking into the past, he told them. Every star they saw was a window into history. But even as he spoke of these grand things, these vast distances and immense time scales, he felt the warmth of the people lying beside him on the grass. He heard their breathing, their soft exclamations of wonder. He smelled the lingering scent of the food they had shared, the wild herbs of the mountainside, the faint salt of the distant sea. And he understood, finally and completely, what his neighbor had been trying to tell him. The stars were beautiful, yes. The universe was vast and mysterious and worthy of study. But so was this. So was the simple pleasure of lying on soft grass with good people, sharing stories, watching the night unfold. One did not have to choose between the stars and the earth. They were part of the same thing. They were both expressions of the same infinite beauty. Eventually, the villagers began to stir. It was late now, truly night, and the path down the mountain would require careful steps in the darkness. Lanterns were lit, their small flames brave against the vast dark. Blankets were folded, baskets lifted, and the procession began its slow descent. The astronomer walked in the middle of the group now, not leading, not following, simply being part of the gentle flow of people making their way home. The path that had seemed so familiar in his solitary nighttime walks felt different now, safer, warmer, shared. The rain began again as they descended, soft and gentle, barely more than a mist. It fell on their faces and their hands, cool and refreshing after the warmth of the day. The astronomer turned his face up toward it, feeling the droplets land on his skin, and smiled. Even the rain was beautiful when you took the time to notice it. They reached the village and began to separate, each family peeling off toward their own home, calling out good nights and see you tomorrows as they went. The astronomer waved to each of them, thanking them for the day, promising to join them again soon. His neighbor was the last to go, standing for a moment at the door of his own house, looking at the astronomer with a gentle smile. "Today was good," the neighbor said. "It was good to have you with us." The astronomer nodded. Words felt inadequate. How could he express what this day had meant to him? How could he explain that in the space of a single day his entire understanding of the world had shifted, had expanded, had become something richer and more complete? "Thank you," he said finally. It was all he could say. It was enough. The neighbor nodded and went inside, and the astronomer was alone in the street. But the loneliness he had felt before was gone. He knew now that he was not truly alone. He was part of something connected to a web of lives and stories and shared experiences. He belonged. The astronomer walked to his own small house and paused at the door. The rain was still falling, soft and steady, a gentle rhythm that seemed to match the beating of his heart. He stood for a moment, feeling the water on his face, feeling the earth beneath his feet, feeling the vastness of the sky above. He thought about going inside, about sleeping in his narrow bed, as he had done for so many years. But something called to him, something he had never done before. He went behind his house to a small patch of grass, where he sometimes dried his herbs. He fetched a blanket and a pillow from inside, and he laid them out on the soft earth. Then he lay down, right there under the open sky, with the rain falling gently on his face. Above him, between the clouds, he could see glimpses of stars. They were still there, still beautiful, still calling to him with their ancient light. But now he saw them as part of something larger, part of a universe that included the earth beneath him, the rain falling on him, the village sleeping around him, the whole beautiful mess of being alive. Let your own eyes grow heavy now. Let your body sink into whatever surface holds you. The astronomer has found what he was looking for, though it was not what he expected. He was looking for knowledge of the stars, and he found knowledge of connection. He was looking for the infinite, and he found it in the finite. He was looking for meaning in the heavens, and he found it right here on earth. The rain continues to fall soft and steady. It has fallen like this for millions of years, nurturing the earth, filling the seas, making life possible. It will continue to fall long after we are gone, long after our small concerns and large ambitions have been forgotten. There is comfort in this. There is peace. The astronomer closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he did not try to stay awake. He did not fight the pull of sleep. He welcomed it, surrendered to it, let it carry him away like a gentle current. And as he drifted off, he smiled, knowing that tomorrow would bring more wonders, more connections, more of the beautiful, ordinary miracle of being alive. Sleep now. Let the rain sing you to rest. Let the stars watch over you from their distant posts. Let the earth hold you safe and warm. You are part of something infinite. You are exactly where you need to be. And tomorrow when you wake, the world will still be beautiful, still be waiting, still be offering its gifts to anyone with eyes to see them. Rest now. Rest. The rain continues its gentle song, and you continue your gentle descent into sleep. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. The day is done. The story is told. All that remains is rest. Feel your body growing heavier. Your arms, your legs, your head all growing heavy and warm. The muscles that have been holding you up all day can finally let go. The thoughts that have been spinning through your mind can finally settle. Everything can rest. Imagine yourself in the astronomer's place now, lying on soft grass, a blanket beneath you, a pillow under your head. The rain falls gently on your face, cool and refreshing. The earth holds you. The sky watches over you. You are safe. You are held. You are home. The sounds of the village have faded to silence. Everyone sleeps. The houses are dark, their inhabitants dreaming their own dreams. The streets are empty except for the rain. The world has grown still. In this stillness, you can hear the rhythm of your own breath, slow and steady, in and out, like waves on a peaceful shore, like the pulse of the universe itself. This breath has been with you since the moment you were born. It will be with you until your very last moment. It asks nothing of you, except that you let it happen. Let it happen now. Let each exhale carry away any remaining tension, any lingering worry, any thought that does not serve you. Let each inhale bring fresh peace, fresh calm, fresh readiness for sleep. The astronomer is sleeping now, deep and peaceful. In his dreams, the stars and the flowers are the same thing. In his dreams, the sky and the earth embrace. In his dreams, there is no separation between himself and the universe. He is part of it all, and it is all part of him. You can join him there in that place of peace and wholeness. All you have to do is let go. Let go of the day. Let go of tomorrow. Let go of everything except this moment, this breath, this gentle rain falling on the ancient earth. The rain falls, the stars shine, the earth turns, and you rest, held by forces older and wiser than you can imagine. You rest, part of something infinite and eternal. You rest exactly where you are meant to be. Sleep well. Dream deep. And when you wake, may you see the world with new eyes, as the astronomer did. May you notice the beauty that is always there, always waiting for your attention. May you feel the connection that binds you to all things, to the earth beneath and the sky above, and every living creature that shares this brief, beautiful journey through time. The rain continues, the night deepens, and you drift down, down, down into rest, down, down, down into sleep. The rain falls on the village rooftops, a soft pattering that blends into the silence of the night. It falls on the temple steps, making the marble shine. It falls on the garden, nurturing the flowers that will bloom again tomorrow. It falls on the sea, each drop joining the vast waters that circle the earth. The rain falls on the mountainside where the villagers watched the sunset. It falls on the paths they walked, washing away their footprints, preparing the earth for new journeys. It falls on the olive groves and the grapevines, on the orange trees and the fig trees, bringing life to everything it touches. The rain falls on the astronomer's small house, streaming down the walls, pooling in the courtyard. It falls on the blanket where he sleeps, but he does not wake. His sleep is too deep now, too peaceful. The rain is part of his dreams, a gentle accompaniment to whatever stories unfold in his sleeping mind. Listen to the rain now. Let it be all that exists, just the sound of water falling from the sky, just the rhythm that has soothed human beings since the very beginning of time. There is nothing to understand, nothing to figure out. Just listen, just rest. The rain will fall through the night. It will still be falling. When the first light of dawn touches the eastern horizon, it will wash the village clean, prepare the earth for another day, fill the cisterns that will quench the thirst of the villagers when they wake. But for now it simply falls. It falls and falls and falls, a never-ending gift from the sky to the earth. And beneath its gentle song, the world sleeps. The astronomer sleeps, the village sleeps, and you, wherever you are, However you came to be listening to this story, you can sleep too. Let go, rest, sleep. The rain will keep falling, the stars will keep shining, the earth will keep turning, and everything is exactly as it should be. Good night.